This journey began for me right here in 2009. I was a kid from Raleigh, North Carolina. A kid with many dreams. A kid who lost his dad at the age of 9. A kid with a bad attitude, or at least that's what I was told. A kid with a chip on his skinny shoulders. A kid who many call and still call him mama boy. But you know I'm cool with that. But most importantly, I was a kid that just loved to play basketball.
Speed has a certain pull, the sound of sudden, of tires screeching and sneakers slicing. It just has a way of turning heads. There's something magnetic about motion at its most uncontainable, a singular entity streaking through the stillness, leaving behind a blur of blending colors. It's intrinsic, a swift stream with the sheer velocity to bend the rules and make a real run at the horizon that's taunted all of us since we were kids. For that very reason, it was never hard to see it with John Wall. From his electrifying mixtape to his captivating single season in Lexington, and in DC, he outlined the intangible, sparked a citywide revival as he kept sprinting towards the same goals that stood in front of him his whole life. But eventually, the pace dipped, the cheers softened, and the spell broke. A loyal few kept up with his journey, while most of the eyes moved on to the next phenomenon. Thankfully, attention has never defined success, and the spotlight has never determined legacies. In time, all-stars stopped shooting through the sky, but the people who peered up from the ground never forgot the way it tore through the silence. John Wall's days decorating the SportsCenter top 10s are behind him, but he's still here. And if we do this story justice, you'll understand how meaningful that really is. The University of Kentucky is no stranger to jaw-dropping talent. The Bluegrass State is a basketball haven perched between obsession and tradition. Its people know the difference between good and great, which is why John Wall's arrival caused such a frenzy. The 6'3" floor general was the #1 player in the country, the star of a wildly famous mixtape, back when going viral was a phrase you still had to explain to people over 50. But that wasn't the source of the hype, not in Kentucky at least. This was about fit and opportunity. John Calipari's dribble drive offense was built around dynamic playmakers, collapsing lanes, and picking defenses apart. And now in his first season with the Wildcats, Coach Cal had a new ignition switch, a live wire with vision, an unguardable manifestation of lightning crackling across the court and blowing past defenders. His first game had the old college town buzzing. Months of preseason speculation were coming to an end, and the electric playmaker was about to usher in a new era of Kentucky basketball. But with 5 seconds to go, Miami of Ohio was still in this game. Then an NBA range 3 from the Redhawks threatened to send the game into overtime. But before those fears could stabilize, John Wall sprinted the ball up the court, stepped back from 15 feet, and nailed the game winner with only 0.5 seconds to go. The worries faded into a roar. As Kentucky's newest icon danced around the court, they knew right then and there this kind of speed was special, and it never stayed in one place for long. The rest of the season was a dazzling tour through the SEC, lobs to DeMarcus Cousins, pick and pops with Patrick Peterson, and fast breaks with Eric Bledsoe. It was can't miss TV every time the Cats came to town, a blinding collection of NBA talent bending rims and wearing out nets. And the man pushing the pace was the baddest of them all. Kentucky went 35-3. Their point guard was named a unanimous All-American, and 5 of their key pieces cemented themselves as first-round draft picks. Then, with Kentucky on the verge of one of the greatest seasons in college basketball history, Bob Huggins and Joe Mazzulla slammed the brakes on Kentucky's title run, stunning the Wildcats in the second round of the NCAA tournament on the backs of a suffocating 1-3-1 zone. There's always another side to that one shining moment, but after the tears dried and the silence subsided, there were no debates, no conflicting big boards. The same name stood at the top of every mock. There was an open wound in the nation's capital, a game of cards turned confrontational, and amidst the firearms and national think pieces that followed, an era came to an abrupt end. Gilbert Arenas was wearing a new number and a knee brace, living out the last years of one riveting career. Without their sweet shooting point guard leading the way, the Wizards descended into dysfunction. Their reward for a listless season was the first overall pick, and even if the fans weren't ready to hand over their hearts to a new lead guard right away, they would be by the end of his first introduction. One picture-perfect Dougie, with the spotlight bearing down on the future of the franchise, quelled all the anxieties. Those season ticket holders were ready to turn the page. Still, there was a reason Washington was able to take that intoxicating prospect in the first place. The Wizards roster was a total mess. They had no foundational building blocks besides him, no pick and roll threats, no spot up snipers, no structure, just wall running uphill. The young kid was showing promise. His burst translated immediately. His decision making was growing with each passing game, and his efficiency continued to climb. But for 2 years, his steady improvements were hidden within the anonymity of a perennial loser. Washington fans could shout his growth from the rooftop. It didn't matter. The vast majority of the country wasn't tuning into League Pass back then to check out a 20-46 basketball team. Then the 2012 draft came around. A knockdown shooter from the University of Florida was available with the 3rd pick. Bradley Beal was a special talent, a St. Louis sniper with the perfect skill set to pair with a downhill attacker running the show. The standings didn't scream contender next year, and the team's perception hardly changed. The people in that capital, though, they knew what they had. It wouldn't be this year. They knew that. They could be the butt of everyone's jokes for one more season, but check back next year and see how funny those trips to DC were then. The team was unrecognizable by 2014 in all the right ways. New threads, new starters, with one blistering blur running it all. The Sands were growing accustomed to Bradley Beal raining in threes, or the Polish Hammer setting punishing screens. But above all else, they loved watching John Wall teach opposing fan bases what speed really looked like. No one in the league reached the same velocity on their drives or cut with the same violence. It was an assault on ankles, a crusade against positioning. Defenders from across the country painstakingly studied film, just to be undone by that same one kind of explosion. The days of despair and unclear direction felt like a distant memory. Every Gortat slam and John Wall 360 layup drove that point home further. The team was playoff bound, poised to make some noise in the postseason before either of their stars in their backcourt had played their 5th season. Washington beat the Bulls in round 1. Wall made his first All-Star game, and the next year they'd follow it up the same way. Another year of the speedometer inching further to the right, another trip to the 2nd round, and another All-Star appearance. The Wizards were knocking on the door of becoming a regular contender. Then in 2016, there was a brief stagnation. An unfortunate slew of injuries slowed their ascent, and every jaded DC sports fan held their breath, waiting for the cascading downfall. Instead, they witnessed the franchise's best season since 1979, one scintillating culmination of every triple-double lost to the archives or no-look passes doomed to die without making it out of the arena. 2017 would be John Wall's magnum opus, and he added to his masterpiece every time he stepped on the court. He was more mature and patient than ever before, and still equipped with the same imperceivable acceleration that made his name famous in the first place. Besides him, Bradley Beal was becoming a certifiable star, the kind of shooter that only needed a faint glint of orange to knock down a look. And with Wall orchestrating the offense, Beal was getting free looks at the cylinder every time. Gortat had developed a rare repertoire with his primary playmaker. The front office had added a trio of dynamic wings to fill out the rotation, and Scott Brooks brought the nuanced expertise required to build a legitimate powerhouse. At the end of the season, the Wizards notched 49 wins, secured a return to the playoffs, and John Wall earned his first All-NBA selection. The round 1 win over the Hawks was a tune-up, shaky at times but never in doubt. Wall averaged 29 and 10, skated through coverages like a stone skipping across water, and left Atlanta chasing ghosts in transition. He was dialed in, on a mission. You could feel it in the way he barked after the and ones, or motioned his teammates into position like a field general who already knew the ending. Then came Boston, the Eastern Conference vanguard with more banners than any one franchise has a right to. Isaiah Thomas defined the laws of verticality that govern the game, pouring in 30 points a night on tough shots only. A Celtics team that wanted to out-tough Washington, outrun them, outshoot them. And for 5 games, the two teams matched each other punch for punch, headline for headline.
I'm a guy that I don't care. I'm not going out without a fight. If I go over 30, I'm willing to lose like that. I got too much heart. I put in too much work. Double knee surgery. Look at this. Couldn't ask for more.
Boston held serve in games 1 and 2 behind a flurry of fourth-quarter daggers. Washington struck back with a pair of blowouts in the Capitol, as Wall spun through double teams and Beal pulled up from 30 like he was still in warm-ups. Then the Celtics took the first threatening advantage in Game 5. Avery Bradley sliced through coverages, and Al Horford turned pick and pops into layup lines. Just like that, it was 3-2. One more loss, and the season, the career crescendo, would slip into memory without a frame. Game 6 was back in DC, a defining elimination game in front of fans that watched him grow up. And in his most pressing hour, John Wall rose to the occasion. He matched Thomas every step of the way, played through Avery Bradley's swarming defense, and did everything he could to put the Wizards in a position to win the game. But down 2 with 5 seconds to go, it didn't look like it would be enough. Otto Porter tried to get Bradley Beal the ball. The Celtics cut him off, and at the last second, Wall broke through. Avery Bradley waited for that terrifying first step, but it never came. Instead, he methodically walked the ball up to the line, pulled up just inches away from the All-NBA defender, and buried it. The next possession, Washington swarmed Thomas, forced a miss, and scheduled one more game. There wasn't a fan in the building who wasn't on their feet, and right in the middle of all of them was John Wall, standing atop the scorer's table, letting the whole world know whose city it was. That same hopeful kid who danced his way through introductions was fully realized now, and those fans had watched in awe as he ran all the way here. We're just gonna let this one breathe for a moment. That shot was supposed to be the start of a new chapter. Instead, it became one of the last memories that fan base would make of him. Wall faded down the stretch of Game 7. There was no official injury, but you could see it on his face. He was pushing his body to the limit. We should have 6 more years to cover. Wall was only 27, coming off the best year of his career. But after what felt like a long-awaited and hard-earned introduction, the injuries started piling up. After that Celtics series ended, he spent half of the 2017 season sidelined with knee soreness. There weren't many point guards as dangerous as John Wall when he was on the court. He was just struggling to stay on it. He found his way back just in time for the playoffs, put up 26 and 11 per game, and pushed the Raptors to 6 games. He wasn't done, nowhere near it. We just watched him put up superstar numbers against a conference finals team. There was plenty of gas left in the tank. We just wouldn't get to see it. The next year, he was sidelined with a heel injury that required surgery, and while recovering, Wall slipped and tore his Achilles. Some held out hope, but most of us knew what that meant. An Achilles injury for an explosive guard is eye-wincing under any circumstance. As he navigated the mental stress of a career-altering injury, he was struck by a personal tragedy. His best friend and mother passed away. That's not the kind of trial that breaks careers. It breaks people. But against all the odds, facing a situation that taxes a soul as much as it does a body, Wall found a way through. 3 years later, he'd returned to DC in a different jersey now. You didn't see the 360 layups or the violent posters. He played a role now, picked his spots, kept the ball moving. He wasn't John Wall, all-NBA point guard anymore, but he was still John Wall, and in that city, that meant something. The fans gave him a standing ovation during his introduction, and when he stole the ball, sped down the court, and stopped for a quick pull-up, the stands roared like it was 2016. Wall responded to the ovation with only 3 words: "Still my city." Our expectations assign attributes to the future before it has a chance to become the present. And if we're not careful, the disparity colors our perception. Sometimes we want certain things. We get taken with the possibilities. So enamored with the potential, we reprimand reality for falling short of our arbitrary and half-baked measuring stick. John Wall could fly. He could glide through the air and slice down the floor. Distance didn't exist to him. And that was enough for us to believe he might have the legs to outrun gravity itself. He didn't, but he got pretty damn close. Linger on the disparity if you want. We won't. When we think of John Wall, we'll remember playoff heroics, layups that reimagined creativity, and how an entire city responded when they watched Francis Pulley's son race down the hardwood. We've never seen colors dance in the wind like that.